With high home prices and higher interest rates, a lot of people are wondering, should I buy a home in 2025 or keep renting? Let's break down the numbers and see what makes sense for you according to your goals. So in many areas in Middle Georgia, the mortgage, which is the principal, taxes, and insurance, are equal to or less than what you're going to pay for a rental in that same type of home, a similar home that's the same size, same square footage, same bedrooms and bathrooms. So keep that in mind whenever you're going to think about renting versus buying, because it's not necessarily that you're going to be spending less money and you're paying somebody else's mortgage and not your own. So just as an example, let's say you're renting a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home and you rent that for right around $1,700 a month. Now, that same home, same size, same bedrooms, same bathrooms, you could buy for $1,600 to $1,800 a month, obviously depending on your credit and some other things that go into that. That just gives you kind of an idea that instead of paying somebody else's mortgage, in my opinion, you would want to pay your own and actually have some equity in the home and have something to show for it versus just throwing money away over here paying somebody else's rent, especially if you're going to be in that area for 2 years or more. I definitely think that buying is the better option. And again, it goes back to your goals and what you want personally, but I would say most people are going to want to have something to show for the money that they're spending versus paying rent and not having anything to show for it. That's just kind of my logic and how I think about it. So again, just to kind of go back to that 2-year thing, I will say 2 years is pretty much the standard as far as what I recommend buying a home. Now, if you're going to be here for well over that, then yes, buying a home, absolutely. If you're going to be here for a year or so, then, we might want to look at renting a home because that might be a better option for you just because of the time period that you're going to be here. The money you're going to put into it, 1 year, we typically see 4 to 5% increase year over year. So I don't think that at that 1 year mark, you're going to want to probably buy a home. But if you don't know how long you're going to be here, it's possible that you're going to be here for way longer than a year. I would say buying a house is probably going to be the best option. All right. So another thing that you have to think about are rent increases. If you've rented, then those dreaded rent increases always keep coming. So with a mortgage, you're not going to have that. Once you lock that rate in and you buy the home, your mortgage payment is what it is. Now, it could fluctuate just a little bit depending on taxes if they change. But other than that, you're not going to have a steady rate increase like you do with rentals. And just so you know, those rental increases are anywhere between 3 and 10%. That's a good little bit of money once you start adding that up year over year over year. It adds up. Whereas you can get a fixed rate mortgage for 15 to 30 years and that rate doesn't change, nothing changes. Like I said, the taxes might fluctuate a little bit, but that'd be here and there. It would be stuck right there at the same percentage. So you'd be paying the same thing every month, every year when you buy a home. So again, going back, I want to say that buying builds equity and renting does not. Every mortgage payment chips away at what you owe on the principal of that home. The longer you pay, the less interest you pay, the more goes to principal, and then you pay it off. Not to mention, if you pay one extra payment a year, that knocks off 5 years of your payments. So just think about that. If you could scrounge up and save a couple of extra payments a year, that's going to save you a lot of money in the long run right there. You're going to have more equity in the home. You're going to have something to show for your money, and you're not going to be renting. You're not going to be throwing your money away. So that's something to keep in the back of your mind too, as far as that is concerned when it comes to buying a home. Equity is where it's at. Just going to say that. That's where you're going to make money. That's where when you sell the home, you're going to take all that money out. You're going to do something else with it, more likely put it into another house. That's what typically happens. But you do have that money there in the house. So, hey, you never know. Maybe something happens and you need that money. You can do a home equity line of credit or something like that. Get yourself out of a jam, pay it back, you're good to go. So you don't have that option whenever it comes to a rental. So it's just nice to have that in the back pocket if you ever need it. I do want to talk about when it does make sense to rent a home. So like we said before, if you're going to be here for right right around that year and a half mark, then maybe it's going to make more sense for you to rent a home versus buy. Or maybe your credit's not where it needs to be. You're still repairing your credit. You've got a good bit of time before you're going to be able to get there. Then renting might be your only option. Now, I will say, if you're in Georgia area or any of the other states that my preferred lenders are licensed in, then they will actually help you get to where you need to be to purchase a home. So they don't charge for this. They just ask that you use them whenever you purchase the home, and they will tell you step by step what you need to do to get your credit where it needs to be to purchase a home. So that's a good little option there. If you are interested in purchasing a home, but you know your credit's not there and you want to get it there, then let me know, shoot me a text, drop a comment, get in touch with me any way you can, and I'll get you in touch with those lenders and they can kind of tell you exactly what to do and get you to where you can purchase a home. So if you want big old fat goose egg, zero responsibility for any repairs or anything like that when it comes to the home, then maybe renting is right for you, because the landlord is going to have to take care of all of those issues as they come up. So you as the tenant would not have to pay to fix those things. So if that's something that you're concerned with, the maintenance of the home, the cost of the upkeep and all that kind of stuff, then maybe renting would be a good option for you. And then again, we'll talk about the job. If you need real flexibility as far as your job is concerned, you're not sure how long you're going to be here, then obviously a rental will probably be more up your alley for what you're needing at that time. Now, on the flip side, I do want to say, when you're buying, there are upfront costs that aren't associated with a rental. So you do have to pay the first month's rent, which typically most people can come up with that. It's not that crazy of a number, versus when you buy a home, you've got a down payment, you've got closing costs, you've got inspections, you've got appraisals. There is money that has to be paid up front, but it pays off in the back end, I promise. When you have that equity in the home, when you have that money sitting there, and if you need it, you can use it, then it kind of just gives you a little security blanket and a little peace of mind knowing that if push comes to shove and you absolutely have to use it, you have that equity in the home and it's there for your disposal. A couple other things that come with owning a home are tax deductions and long-term appreciation. So just because you buy a home for $200,000 today doesn't mean 4 years from now it's going to still be worth $200,000. That price is going to increase as the market goes up. That comes back to the equity part that we've been talking about, having that money in the home. Whereas, just for an example, I built my home 4 years ago. I think we paid $350,000 for it back then. Haven't really done much to it other than upkeep, maintenance, and we added a screened-in back porch with a fire pit, and now our home appraises for right at $450 4 years later. So that right there is enough for me to say, okay, I want to own a home because I like the thought of having that equity. So whether I go to sell it one day, I get that $100,000 for not really doing anything other than upkeeping my home, making sure the maintenance is done, and then just allowing the market to slowly grow that over time. Just something to think about. I know for first-time home buyers, it's a lot to think about. It's a lot to take in. So if you have any questions, obviously you can drop them in the comments. Give me a call, 478-888-7808. We would love to have that conversation with you and talk with you about it. Another thing with home purchases, you have that freedom to customize that home however you would like. If you want to paint it neon yellow inside and have black lights all over the place, then you can do that. Don't get me wrong, some landlords might not mind if you paint or whatever, but as far as putting on a back porch or putting a pool in or having a shed out back or a workshop or stuff like that, you're typically not going to be able to do that with a rental. Whereas when you buy a home, obviously, depending on if it's in an HOA subdivision or not, you'll be able to do pretty much whatever you want to. And even then, a lot of times you just have to submit your plans to the HOA for them to approve it, and you can still put up your building or whatever you're wanting to do. Not horrible. But if you want to do that stuff, get outside an HOA and you'll be fine. And just a little quick fact, most buyers recuperate that upfront money when they buy a home within 2 to 4 years of owning that home in the equity growth. You might have to pay it up front, but again, it pays for itself in the back end. Now, in the grand scheme of things, renting might be easier than buying. I'll give it to you. Buying a home is kind of complicated and confusing at times, especially if you don't have a good real estate agent that's going to help you through the process. If you're in that category where you're like, well, renting is just easier, I don't want the headache of buying a home or anything like that, then you're right. But what I'm saying is buying a home is going to be worth going through the hassle when you have that equity that grows year after year and you have that money in the home. I think the juice is worth the squeeze when it comes to buying a home. It might not be easier, but it's going to be more worth your time in the long run. So what's riskier in 2025? Buying or renting? Renters risk paying more for a rental property and not having anything to show for it. And buyers risk short-term volatility when it comes to the rates, but they also have the option to refinance whenever the rates drop, which will lower their monthly payment and then obviously reduce their interest. So it really is just going to depend on what you personally are wanting to do and what your ultimate goal is as far as owning a home or if you're good with just renting. So I don't know if you've ever heard of date the rate, marry the house. It's kind of cliche, I get it, but it still stands. You can refinance later whenever the rates do go down, if they go down. They could go up, and then you're going to be sitting around without a house that you could have bought for $200,000 last year, and now you're going to pay $250,000 for it, and the interest rate is going to be higher. Just keep that in mind whenever you're trying to decide whether you want to buy a home or rent, because if you sit around and wait, I've had it happen to so many of my clients. They've been waiting for interest rates to go down. The interest rates didn't go down. They actually went up. The home prices continued to go up. So now it's out of budget. The interest rate is higher than what they can afford and they don't have a home. So think about that. Think about the equity that you can have in the home and the long-term play versus the short-term play right now with a rent. So if you're thinking about renting or buying in the 2025, then let's have a conversation and we can run the numbers. We can make sure that everything makes sense for you, whether it's renting or buying. I have no problem helping you either way. I just have preferences when it comes to buying or renting. And like I said, there is a time and a place for renting. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying there's not, but I'm saying if you have the credit score, you have the money, and you have the ability to buy a home, I think the long-term play and the long-term results would be much more satisfying for you if you went ahead, bite the bullet, and purchased the home versus renting for 3, 4, 5, 6 years and not having anything to show for it. So if you want to have that conversation, I would love to. Give me a call, shoot me a text, drop a comment. Phone number is 478-888-7808. Y'all have a good day. We'll see you on the next one.